Hey guys, welcome to another crash course. Today we're going to be looking at Twitter Bootstrap, which is a front-end framework. Now, before my longtime subscribers start complaining, asking why the hell is he doing a tutorial on Bootstrap, let me just say that I'm starting to add videos to my channel for beginners. I just did one on building an HTML5 website, and a lot of you seem to like that. I do have Bootstrap stuff on my channel, but those videos are a little more advanced as they work with Sass and Less, which are CSS precompilers, and they're also on building themes. What this is just an all-around look at the CSS components and some of the other features of Bootstrap. Alright, so it's geared towards beginners, but of course your advanced programmers are welcome to freshen up your UI skills. I have one more Bootstrap video after this, which will be creating a complete CMS admin UI. And then after that, we'll be moving along to more advanced subjects, and we'll go from there. Alright, so what is Twitter Bootstrap? Bootstrap is a front-end framework, meaning that it's used on the client, not the server, and it's specifically used for user interfaces and themes, so design what the user sees in a website or application. It includes bits of code in HTML, CSS, and also JavaScript. Now, unfortunately, in this video, we probably won't get to the JavaScript part. We'll see, though. We'll see what happens. Bootstrap is used for building responsive, mobile-first web applications and websites. And what mobile-first means is it refers to designing for smaller screens first and then working up to the larger screens. All right, so it's great for mobile apps and mobile websites. It's also the most popular framework of its type by far. Foundation is pretty popular as well, but nowhere as near as popular as Bootstrap is. So why use Bootstrap or any framework at all? Why not just build the HTML and CSS outright? In many cases that may be a good idea, but let's look at what Bootstrap can offer you. So increased development speed, this is the number one reason to use a framework, not just a front-end framework, but any kind of framework, PHP, JavaScript. With Bootstrap, all your helper classes for alignment and style and positioning, they're all done for you. You may need to do some tweaking, but for the most part, all you need to really worry about is adding those classes to your HTML. Okay, responsiveness is another huge advantage. Instead of using custom media queries and creating a responsive site from scratch, you can simply use the grid system and you'll have a mobile-friendly website or application. Consistency is another one, so with class names, style, markup, keeps your website and your theme very consistent. It's completely customizable. Of course, you can add your own classes and your own design to any Bootstrap theme, and it allows you to create really custom interfaces. Also support, like most frameworks, it has documentation, and relative to other documentations, it's pretty good. It also has a huge community. Like I said, it's the most popular framework out there, so there's a lot of people using it. You can ask pretty much any developer for help, and they should be able to help you. Alright, so what we'll cover in this course, or this mini-series, whatever you want to call it, we'll talk about what Bootstrap is. That's pretty much what we're doing now. We're going to get it set up and installed, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the different ways we can implement it. So we'll look at the HTML and CSS components. Like I said, I don't know if we're going to get to the JavaScript part, the modals and things like that. But we will be looking at some of the JavaScript in the admin theme video that I'm going to create. We'll also look at the grid system, which is probably the best part of Bootstrap. Allows you to create layouts without having to use floats or any of that. Alright, we'll also create what we're going to be working on is a Bootstrap cheat sheet. So it's not going to be a theme, an organized theme. We're just going to look at some of the classes and syntax and put together a single index HTML file that you can refer to figure out what you need to do to create alerts or progress bars, Jumbotron, Navbars, things like that. Alright, now of course you could always go and look at the documentation, but we're going to go through it step by step, and you'll have something to refer to on a single page. Now, as far as what Bootstrap gives you for components and helpers and things like that, this is just some of them. Okay, Navbar Dropdowns, Jumbotron, which is like a showcase area, alerts, progress bars. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but these are some of the things that you can implement very, very easily. You also have JavaScript widgets and helpers, so things like transitions, modals, which are nice looking pop-ups, drop-downs, tabs, sliders, things like that. So as far as setting up Bootstrap, there's a few different ways to do it, and there's more than what I have listed here. The way that we're going to do it is just download the files. Now you get all the source files, including Sass and Less and all that stuff, but what we're going to do is just take the distributed CSS and JavaScript, the compiled code, and just include it in our template. Okay, really easy. If you don't want to download the source files, you can use a CDN or a content delivery network, which basically you can just put a script tag and a link to the CSS right in your template that's hosted somewhere else, not in your website or application. The downside to that is that you can't really work with it offline because you need to be able to access that resource. You can also use Bower, which is a package manager. Bower is a client-side package manager. It installs things on the client side like Bootstrap, jQuery. We're not going to get into that. I do use Bower in many other videos. NPM is another package manager, but that's on the back-end side. That has to do with Node.js, using JavaScript on the server. And you can include it kind of like you would with Bower. All right, but we're not going to get into that in this video. This video is for beginners. And then the last thing I want to mention is that when you use the Bootstrap JavaScript file, you also need to include jQuery. Okay, it uses jQuery for all those widgets. All right, so that's really important. All right, so that's it for the slides. Let's get into it and start to look at some code. Alright guys, so we're going to get started here, and what I've done is just created a folder on my desktop called Bootstrap Cheat Sheet, and we have an index.html file in there, and I just have the text hello. Alright, so that's what we're seeing in the browser here. Now, of course, you can just load your HTML file through your file system or through your operating system. Just open it up, but I'm using the server. It's actually an add-on for Atom that gives us a local server. It's supposed to have live reload, but it's not working. You'll see if I go ahead and save that, this doesn't reload automatically. I really wanted it to, but I need to actually hurry up and get this done, so I don't have time to troubleshoot it. So we're just going to have to manually reload it. All right, old school. So what we're going to do is go to getbootstrap.com. That's the official website for Bootstrap. And you'll see up here Bootstrap 4 is coming. This has been here for ages. Bootstrap 4, if we open this up, is actually still in alpha, alpha 5, and I have no idea when the hell it's gonna be stable. I debated on doing Bootstrap 4 for this video, but I wanted to do what is stable and available at this time. So there will be a Bootstrap 4 video coming, just not right now. Alright, so let's take a look at the website. I'm just going to make this a little bigger. So if we click on Getting Started, this actually gives us a link to download. Okay, we can get the compiled CSS and JavaScript, which is what we're going to use. You can get the entire source code. You can use Sass and Less, which are CSS pre-compilers. Gives us the CDNs we can use. Gives us the commands for Bower and NPM. Things like that, Composer. Let's see if we could go down here. This gives us basically the structure of the Bootstrap source code. How to install with Grunt, which is a task runner. That's more advanced. We're not going to get into that. And if I click over here on Basic Template, you'll see that this is how something to start with. Gives us the meta tags that we need, all of that. A lot of stuff that we don't need as well. But what we're going to do is grab this. Okay, we're going to just paste that in there. Alright, and let's make this bigger. I like to do it side by side, but unfortunately it doesn't show enough. I need to make this a little bigger. Okay, and let's just take a look here. So we have our doc type, we have our HTML tag with a language attribute for English. Obviously, if you're using a different language, you want to change it. In the head, we have our UTF, our character set. We have this HTTP equiv, which we're setting to x-UA compatible. And this just has to do with providing an HTTP header for the value of the content attribute. This is for the viewport, for the size of the screen basically, and we're setting it to the device width, okay, whatever the width of the device, set it to initial scale of 1. Alright, let's get rid of this comment. And for our title, let's change it to Bootstrap Cheat Sheet. Okay, now we haven't downloaded the files yet, but we're going to point to CSS. We're going to create a folder called CSS, and then we're going to use the Minified Bootstrap file. Okay, now if you don't know what Minified means, it's basically you take the CSS file and you get rid of all the white space, all the comments. You make it as small as possible. Okay, give it a really small file size by taking that stuff out. You can also use bootstrap.css, which is not the minified, which has all the comments and all that stuff. Alright, but usually you don't need that. Now I'm going to get rid of all this. We do not need that. Okay, and then we have our body. We have an h1 hello world. And right here it's loading jQuery using the Google CDN. Okay, we're using this Ajax Google APIs. Now you could download jQuery and just include it in your files if you want. But we're just going to keep this. Alright, and then we're just pointing to a JS folder with Bootstrap, again the minified JavaScript. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. And if we were to reload, we're not going to see any style changes or anything because Bootstrap isn't being loaded. In fact, if I open up my console, it's going to tell us that it's not finding these files. So let's go ahead and download Bootstrap. We're going to go to, actually, we're going to go right here, and we're going to go to this download Bootstrap link. Okay, notice that it has the dist. Okay, this is distributed, so it's basically the compiled CSS and JavaScript, and also the fonts. So let's open that up. Okay, we'll open that zip file up and go into here, and you can see we have a CSS folder, fonts, and JS. Okay, now we're going to bring that over to our Bootstrap cheat sheet folder. Okay, and we're going to just clean this up a little bit. If we go into CSS, we have all these different files. Like I said, we have the unminified and the minified. We also have this theme file, which is for a custom Bootstrap theme, but we don't want that either. All we want is this file right here, bootstrapmin.css. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete everything else. And fonts folder, we do want that. If you want to use any of the icons or the glyphicons, you need to have this. So we're going to save that. In the JS folder, we're going to get rid of Bootstrap.js, which is the unminified, and then we also don't need this npm.js. Okay, so all we want is bootstrapmin.js. Now if we go and we reload, you can see that, oh, I guess it did, oh, live reload did work. Maybe it just takes a while. You'll notice that the font has changed, the padding here has changed. Alright, so we know that Bootstrap is being included. Also, we're not getting any errors in the console. Alright, so let's go back to the documentation, and if we continue on the Get Started and we go to Examples, you'll see that there's actually a bunch of pre-made templates that you can use. The starter template with the Navbar, this one has the Jumbotron and some button examples, the grid system. If we go down here, you have one that implements the carousel, which is a JavaScript widget. So there's some basic starting points you can use, and I've actually used these quite a bit, but we're not going to get into that. We want to just start from scratch, start fresh, and just do some custom coding. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go through any of this because we need to keep this kind of short. If we go to the CSS link up here in the navbar, and we look over here, you can see we have the grid system. Okay, so this gives us all the different classes for the grids, and we're going to go through all this. I'm just showing you what's available in the documentation. Typography, this is actually what we're going to start with, just basic heading classes, things like that, paragraph classes. Let's see, tables. Okay, see the different tables, you can style them with striped and bordered. Forms, okay, so forms look pretty nice. Inline forms, buttons, different colors and sizes. Let's see, images, you can format your images to be rounded or bordered or whatever. helper classes for alignment, things like that. Let's see. So that's the CSS link. If we go to the components link, it gives us even more stuff, gives us all the icons and the classes. Let's see, drop downs, button groups. Okay, you can group buttons together. The Navbar, which of course is important. Let's see, breadcrumbs, labels, pagination. I'm not going to go through it all right here. We're going to actually look at that in our file. We're going to type it out. But you can see that everything's available from the documentation. Even JavaScript, if we look at that, gives us the code, for instance, for the modal. Okay, there's a little demo here. If we click that, opens up a modal. You get all the code for that. Okay, so it's pretty good documentation. All right, so now what we're going to do is go into our file, and we're going to start with typography and some of the helper classes. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the body, and we'll just keep this heading here. Okay, let's open that up in the browser. I'm going to close the console. Now, usually you want to push your content to the middle and not have it up against the side here. And normally you'd use CSS, you'd put a margin auto, you'd put some maybe margin on the top, overflow, hidden, things like that. With Bootstrap, we have a class called container that we can just add, and it'll take care of that stuff for us. Alright, so I'm using Atom for my editor, by the way. So if we go ahead and save that, now you'll see that it just gets pushed over in the middle here. Okay, and it's set to be responsive. You can see that it changes as you make the browser bigger and smaller. So container is a really important class. Alright, so now what I want to do is look at headings and paragraphs and things we can do to style those. Alright, let's see. You know what, I'm going to make this smaller so we can see both. Alright, so for the heading, there's a class called page header. So if we say class page header and save that, you'll see that it gives it some extra padding and it gives it a border. Okay, makes it look pretty nice. Okay, nice and clean. You want to use that for you know, your page titles, things like that. Alright, we can also put some smaller text in here. If we go small, okay, which is just an HTML tag. This isn't special to Bootstrap or anything. And if we were to say, let's just say secondary text, save that, and probably want to put a space right there. Okay, so that just gives us a little subtext, which looks kind of nice. Alright, so now let's put in some paragraphs. Okay, now using Atom or Sublime Text, we can use the lorem. You can type in lorem and then tab, and it'll give you this sample content. Alright, let me just space this out. Okay, it gives you quite a bit here. It gives us a good sized paragraph. Now I'm going to wrap this in paragraph tags. Okay, let me just make that a little bigger. Alright, so if we save that, now you can see we have a paragraph, and this looks pretty nice just by default. Looks pretty clean as far as the line height, things like that, the font. Alright, now if we want to, let's actually take a little piece of this and copy it, and we'll put a shorter paragraph above it. Alright, and then we're going to give this a class, this top paragraph, a class of lead. Save that, and you'll see that now it's a little bigger. Okay, so if you want to have a paragraph that kind of sticks out, you can use the lead class. Alright, now we also have inline text elements. So for instance, if you want to highlight some text, let's say we want this, we'll put in a tag called mark, like that, save it, and you can see that that text is now highlighted. If we want to cross out some text, we can do that. We can do that with the del tag. Okay, so now you can see that this text is now crossed out. Let's see what else we can do. We can obviously do underlines. Some of this stuff isn't you know, unique to Bootstrap, but it does format it nice and neatly. bold. Obviously, you can do strong and all that. So nice text formatting. Let's see. Next thing I want to look at is alignment. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go under. We're going to stay within this container div, and I'm just going to put a line here, a horizontal rule, just to separate it. And let me just comment this stuff too, just so you guys can have it. So this will be, let's do caps. We'll say alignment. Okay, and up here, let's put a comment. Typography. All right, yeah. So for alignment, we have different classes we can use. What I'm going to do is paste in just some very short paragraphs. Okay, so we'll save that, and obviously these aren't aligned yet because we haven't added any classes. But let's say we want to align to the left. We can use a class called text left. Okay, so if I save that, oh, well, it is to the left. Okay, so if we want to align to the center, let's say text center, save. Okay, so that moves it to the center. We can say text right, moves it to the right. We can do justify, so text justify, save that. Okay, so we're not going to see any difference here, but it is going to justify it. And then we can also make it so that it doesn't wrap by saying text dash no wrap. Okay, so that'll prevent any wrapping. Now we also have some transformation classes. I should probably add that here as well. Okay, so let's say we want all of the text to be lowercase. So if we can just go ahead and add in text dash lowercase, and now notice that it's all lowercase. We can do text uppercase. Okay, save that. Now that's all uppercase. We can also do capitalize, which I believe will capitalize the the first letter of every word. Okay, so just some nice helper classes. Now we also have classes for floats. So let's put a comment here. We'll say quick floats. Okay, now let's say we have a div. We'll say div floated. Whoops. Div floated to right. Okay, so if we save that, you'll see it's just normal. But if I go and I add a class of pull right, save it, and you'll see that it's now floated to the right. Okay, and of course we have float left. So that's a div floated to the left. Okay, which isn't going to look any different. Now I'm going to put an HR right here, and notice that the HR is now directly through the text, which obviously we don't want. So when you float something, and if you know CSS, you probably know this, you have to clear it, all right, in order for things to go back to normal. So with Bootstrap, we have a special class for that called clearfix. Okay, and let's just put a comment here. Okay, so save that, and now you'll see the HR is moved back where it should be. Alright, so that is alignment. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is block quotes. Okay, so if you have a quote from someone that you want to style and make look nice, what we can do, let's put a comment. Okay, so we're going to use the block quote HTML tag, and let's give it a class of block quote. Okay, and in here let's put, I'm just going to paste this in, just a small paragraph. Okay, so if we save that, you'll see it's formatted pretty nicely. It has this bar on the side here. We can also add in a footer to our block quote. So I'm going to do a little bit of copying and pasting just to speed things up a little bit. So we have this wrapped in a footer tag, and we have the name wrapped in a cite tag with the title. Alright, so if we save that, you'll see that that's formatted nicely. Now if we want to reverse this and put this on this side, we can just use the class block quote dash reverse, and now you'll notice that it's reversed, the text is aligned different, we have the bar on that side. Alright, so that's a block quote. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is lists. Okay, now Bootstrap has a component called a list group. We're not going to look at that just yet. This is just regular lists. So let's first look at what just a standard list looks like with no classes. So we'll save that. Okay, so by default, the list items have a bullet, and they also have, the UL has some padding. I believe it's 10 pixels padding, pushes it over to the right. Now if we want to take away that styling, all we have to do is give it a class of list unstyled, save that, and now you'll see the bullets are gone, the padding's gone. We can also create inline lists, so let's just copy that, and let's give this a class of list dash inline, save it, and now we have an inline list, okay, which is good for menus, things like that. Alright, now if we want to include actual code, maybe you have a web design or development blog and you want to include some code, you can do that, although there are better solutions out there, such as Markdown, but you can do it, and it's formatted nicely. Okay, and a lot of this stuff is HTML by default, but you'll just see how Bootstrap styles it nicely. Alright, so let's say we want in H1 to do our slashes and not have it parse. We'll do the ampersand LT, and let's put in H1, and then we're going to do ampersand GT semicolon, and then let's say heading text. Then we'll do the same thing. Let's grab that. Okay, and we'll just put a slash before the H1. So if we save that, now you'll see we have our H1 and the heading text. Alright, now if you want to do keyboard commands, you can do that as well. I'm just going to paste this in. So I just put a line break, and then we have the text change directory with CD, and then I wrap that in this KBD, this keyboard tag. And then down here we have control plus, control plus, and then we have the comma. So let's save that, see what that looks like. Okay, so you can see that's formatted pretty nicely if you want to tell somebody which keys they have to press or something like that. Alright, so now what we're going to do is put in another HR here, and we're going to take a look at contextual classes. Now, Bootstrap has a set of contextual classes to use for different colors and styles. For instance, primary gives you a blue color, success gives you a green color, info I believe is light blue, and you can use these on different things. You can use it on paragraphs, you can use it on alerts, panel headings, all types of stuff. Alright, so let's just take a look at contextual colors. Did I spell that right? Contextual colors. And let's just go ahead and paste some short paragraphs. Alright, so they're all paragraphs with hello world. This first one, we're going to give a class of text dash primary. Okay, let's take a look at that. Notice that the first one here is blue. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a div down at the bottom here and give it a style of height. Let's set the height to 400 pixels. Or can I just say, yeah, height 400 pixels. And save that. There we go. So that way it's not at the bottom of the page and you guys can see. So that gave us a blue color. Okay, we also have success. So text dash success. And save that. Now you can see very faintly, but it's a green color. Okay, we also have info. We have warning. Okay, and just remember these keywords because they're all associated with a color. And then we have danger. Save that, and now you'll see that for info we get a light blue, warning is a yellow. It's hard to see with just the little text. And then danger is red. And then this bottom one here we can actually use text dash muted. Save that, and that makes it basically just light, okay, light gray. Alright, now we can do the same thing with backgrounds. So what I'm going to do is copy all of this, paste that in. Let's say contextual background colors, and all we want to do is change text to BG. So we have BG primary, BG success, BG info, BG warning, BG danger, and I don't think BG muted is one, but we can try it. So let's save that, and now you can see that they each have the background. Now you probably want to add some padding because everything is, you know, flush up against the text, so you may want to add some padding, but you can see you can do the same thing with backgrounds. Alright, so that takes care of typography and a lot of the different helper classes for text. Now we're going to look at buttons, and for this I'm going to open up a new container, so we're going to go outside of that one. Let's just separate things a little bit. Okay, and let's put an HR in between here as well. Alright, so now we're going to look at buttons. Okay, so buttons, you can format a link as a button tag, an input with the type of submit, which you would use in a form. So let's take a look at some of those. So first we just have a standard button, and let's give it a class of btn, and then btn-default, which is kind of the style of the button. Okay, and then in the text, let's just say button. Actually, we'll say default. Alright, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that's what a default button looks like. It's just white, and you hover over it and you get a gray background. Now we can do the same thing with a link, same kind of formatting. So let's say A, and this would go somewhere, and then we could add the same class that we did here. Okay, whoops, I don't want to do that. That's an A tag. And then you probably want to put in a role attribute of button. Okay, and let's just say default. Actually, you know what we'll do? Let's make this text say button. This one will say link, just so we know what it is. Okay, and we can also do an input tag. Okay, so this would typically be for a form, so it would be type submit. Okay, we can give it the same class. And this would have a value as well. So this would be a submit. Save that. And now you can see that each one is formatted the same way, even though it's a button, a link, and an input. Okay, so now let's look at the different contextual styles of the buttons, just like we have with the text. So we'll go right here and say contextual buttons. Okay, I spelled that wrong. Okay, I'm just going to grab this right here, this button. This is the default. Change that to default. And I'm going to copy that. And then we're going to put some other ones in here as well. Okay, so after default, let's do primary. So instead of btn default, we'll do btn primary. My spelling is ferocious. Is that a word? Ferocious? Okay, so after primary, we'll do success. Okay, and then we'll do info. And obviously, different situations, you're going to want to use different colors and context. We have warning. So an example would be the success is a green one, so you probably want that. Let's say if you post a blog post and you just want a message saying post created, that would be an example of a success. And this would basically be with alerts, not buttons. For instance, with a button with danger, which is red, you'd use that for a delete. If you're going to delete something that can have consequences. Okay, so let's take a look at these. And there's our contextual buttons. Okay, you can also format a button as a link if you don't want the background and all that. So if we were to say btn-link and say link, save that. Now you can see the button is just like a link. There's no border or anything. Now we also have different sizes for the buttons. So let's say button sizes. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this default button. And what we're going to do is add in a class here of btn-lg for large. So if we look at that, notice that the button is much bigger than the rest of them. The next one down would be just your default button. So I'll just copy that again. Save that. So that's just the default. Let's actually put a line break right here as well. Okay, we'll make that a little more readable. We'll put a line break here too. Okay, so we have the large, we have the regular, and then we have small. Copy that. Change that to btn sm. And then we also have extra small, so XS. Save it, and you can see the different sizes. And of course, you can use different context with it as well. For instance, if we want the small one to be blue, we can do button primary, and now we have a small blue one. All right, we also can add a disabled attribute. So let's say this little one here, we want that to be disabled. We can say disabled equals disabled, and now if I hover over it, you'll see the little X. I can't do anything with it. It's disabled. Alright, so that's the basics of buttons. Now we're going to move along to forms, and for that I'm going to create a new container. I actually want to put this comment above the container. Like that. Okay, that ends there, and then we'll put another comment for forms. Okay. Let's go ahead and put in a form tag. Okay, so we need to wrap a container. Okay, so in the form, let's do a field. Now you want to wrap your fields in a class called form control. Okay, wrap them in form control, and then let's put a label. So we'll say name, and then we'll put our input. Give it a type of text. And let's see, we'll add a placeholder. We'll say add name. Alright, so let's see what that looks like. Oh, I'm sorry, this form control should be form group. There we go. And let's put HR right here. Now, I don't like how this, this just looks like there's no styling at all. So what we want to do is in the input, we want to give that a class of form control. Save it. And now that looks much better. It goes all the way across. It has some padding, some height, width. So that looks good. Now let's do an email. So what I would do is copy the form group. Paste that in and change that to email. You probably want to change the type to email. We're using HTML5. And we'll say add email. Save it. Now we have another field. Okay, we can also do text areas. Let's copy this form group. And we'll say message. Okay, and instead of an input, let's do a text area. With the class of form control, you can still use a placeholder. Okay, but this needs an ending tag as well of text area. Alright, save that. Now we have a message. Alright, a select list. Let's just paste this in, save some time. We're going to go under this form group. Okay, we're going to have another form group and then a label with gender. Have a select, class form control, put our options, male, female, and I want it to be politically correct, so I put other. Okay, let's take a look at that. That looks pretty good. Also, file upload fields. We'll go under the form group here and paste that in. Oops, let me just grab that again. Okay, form group, label, upload file. We have an input with the type of file. And we can also have these help blocks. We have a paragraph with the class of help block telling us that we can only upload PNG and JPEG files. Alright, let's just separate these form groups a little. Alright, so there's our file upload. Okay. And we also have checkbox. Let's go ahead and add one of those. So under the form group, paste that in, we get a checkbox. Okay, very simple. And then let's put our submit button. Paste that in. We just have a button with the type of submit. Set it to the button default class. And there we go. So that's a very simple form using Twitter Bootstrap. Now we also have inline forms. What I'm going to do is just copy and paste this in the same container. Let's just put an HR here. Okay, we'll paste that in. Now we have a form with the class of form inline. Same thing, we have our form groups. Okay, it's an email. This one is a password, and then we have a checkbox with remember me, and then a button. So what makes it inline basically is this class right here. So let's save that. And let's see, maybe this is too small to be in. Yeah, there we go. So when you get to a certain point, it stops being inline, but you can see there, that's a nice login form setup. All right. Let's see, next thing, let's move on to tables. Okay, so up to this point, you can see you have a nice little cheat sheet for the different classes. But let's see, let's just push this stuff over. Alright, so we're going to go under this container. And that should not be container like that. That should be a div. Did I do that anywhere else? No. Alright, you guys probably caught that a while ago. Okay, so let's see, form, that ends there, container ends here. Let me just make sure that matches up. Yep. So we're going to create a new container. Okay. Alright, so for tables, I'm just going to paste in just a standard table. Okay, we'll paste that in. It's just a table with first name, last name, and age. Save it. And that's what it looks like by default, which is pretty ugly. Okay, I'm just going to put an HR right here, separate it. Okay, so that's pretty ugly, and we can fix that very easily if we go and we add class to the table tag of table and save it. Look at that. Look how drastic that changes. Okay, it actually looks nice and clean. Now there's other classes we can add on to format it even further. For instance, if we say table striped, okay, what that does is it takes every other one and darkens it, gives it a nice little effect. We can also make it bordered. We say table dash bordered. I don't really use this, but it is possible. Okay, you can see the borders. What else? We can make it so that when we hover over a table row here, it will highlight. So we can do that with table dash hover. Okay, notice when I hover over it, it changes. And we can also do table condensed. Okay, and that will just make it kind of smaller. You can see it condensed the padding a little bit. And we can also use contextual classes here. So for instance, let's say Jill, we want her row to be red. We could say class, make sure it's on the TR, and we could say danger. Okay, now her row is now red. If we wanted John to be success or to be green, we could say success, and that turns his row green. Okay, so very easy, very minimal code to make this look pretty good. Alright, so moving along, now we're going to go to list groups, and you know what, I'm going to just add some comments here. I want you guys to be able to use this if you need. So this will be, that's forms, that's labeled. Alright, I guess for this one we could put inline form. Okay, that's our table, and let's go outside of the container. Put in HR, and then we'll open a new container. Okay, and we're going to do a list group. So I'm going to paste in just a regular list. Okay, save that. Your standard list, let's turn it into a list group by going to the UL and saying class equals list group. Okay, now if we just do that, it doesn't really do anything. We need to also add classes. Whoops. Save that. We need to also add classes to the list items. So class equals, and we want to say list group item, letting it know that it's an item of this list group. Alright, and then we'll just copy that. We want to do it for all of these. Alright, so let's save. And there we go. So that looks pretty nice. Now if we want to do a menu, that's going to be a little different. What I'm going to do is just paste this in. Okay, so notice we're not using LIs, we're using A tags with the list group item. Save that. Okay, whoops, we want to put that within the container. Okay, and notice that we can hover over them and they have links. Okay, now if I click on that one, you'll see that that's now active. Okay, it adds a class called active. If we want an active by default, then we can just go and add in right here. We'll say active, save it, and now it's active. Okay, and when you label it active, it gives you the primary context, which is blue. Now let's say we want this one to be success or green. We could say list group item, Jesus, I can't type, item dash success. Okay, that makes it green. We can also disable them. So if we go here and we just say disabled, let's see, list group item disabled. It should disable it, I would think. Okay, there we go. No. Huh. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Oh well. So moving on, let's move away from list groups. We're kind of running out of time here. I want to move on to panels and wells, which kind of give us a background for our content and also a heading. So I'm going to go outside of this container. Did I? No, I didn't. Let's put a comment. List group. Okay, we'll go outside of this container, create a new one. This is, let's see, container. Alright, so let's start with panels. Now let's go to the documentation and go to components. And let me just make this a little bigger. Not components. Or yes, components, but why isn't it working? Is my internet out? Please don't tell me my internet's out. Alright, there we go. Now if we go down to panels, and right here, so we have panel heading without title, and we have it with the title. I want the one with the title, which is this right here, so we can just grab that. Okay, let's put a comment here. Paste that in. Tab this over. So basically we have a div with the class of panel and panel default. Then we have a panel heading with an H3 that has the class of panel title, and then the panel body where all the content goes. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so there's our panel. We can also add a footer to our panel. So if we go under the body and say div class equals panel footer, save it. Now you can see it has a footer. Alright, and if we want to change the colors here, we can use the context. So if we were to say, let's see, instead of panel default, actually no, we probably want to put this on panel heading. No, not panel heading, right here, panel default, let's change it to panel primary. Save that. And now you can see that it has the blue background, also gives us a blue border around it. So you can add that. You can make it green, red, however you'd like. Now wells are pretty simple. It's just the background gives you some padding and a background color of gray by default. So let's see, we'll go right under the panels and let's put a comment. Say wells. And let's do div class equals well. And we'll just say hello world. Alright, save that. What are we having trouble with live reload again? Looks like it. Alright, so that's our well. You can see it just has some padding with a background. There's a couple customizations we can do with wells. So let's just copy this, paste it in twice. This one will do well-lg. This one will do well-sm. So we can do large and small. And let's see. Oh, we also have to have the class of well. So we need both. Okay, so now you can see there's some more padding. This is bigger. This one has less and it's smaller. Okay, so those are wells. Now we're going to look at alerts. Let's just put HR right there. And I apologize if I'm moving kind of fast, guys. It's just that this is a lot of markup, a lot of content to go through, and I want to just get as much as possible. So this is for alerts. And let's see, what we'll do is let's paste in a couple of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so we just have a div with the class of alert, the role of alert, and let's make this a success alert. Alright, now if we just look at it now, how it is, it's just the text. But if we add here alert dash success, save that, now we get a green alert. We can do the same with info. Say an info alert, and we'll just add here alert dash info. Okay, this one will be warning. So we'll do alert dash warning. This will be danger, and I can imagine the amount of comments I'm going to have about my spelling. There we go again. Alert dash danger. Alright, so let's save that, and now you can see the different alerts that we can do. Now, what's cool is that we can also have an alert where we can dismiss it. We can click X and get rid of it. So for that, let's go under here, and I'm just going to paste this in. So div class, we're using alert warning, and then we're adding alert dismissible. And then inside of it, we have a button with the class of close, a data dismiss attribute of alert, and we're using this and ampersand times for the X mark. Alright, and the alert text will just say you can close this. So now you can see we have this X here. If I click that, it goes away. And I believe you have to have the JavaScript file linked for it to be able to do that. Okay, so next thing, progress bars. So let's put an HR right here. Actually, let's stay within the container. Okay, we'll just put say progress bars. And let's see, we're going to say div class equals progress. Okay, so that's kind of the wrapper class, and then inside you want to do div class equals progress bar. Okay, and let's see, we're going to give this has to have a style so that we can define the width of it, or the percentage. So we'll say style width is 50%. I think that should work. And in here, let's just put the text 50%. Let's see what that does. Okay, so that gives us a nice progress bar. Now there's some things we can add to it to change the style up. So for instance, if we want to make it green, we can use the contextual classes and say progress bar success. Okay, now it's green. We can also make it striped. Okay, now notice it's striped, and we can even make it animated if we make it active. That, and now you can see that it's animated. So pretty cool. Alright, so we're getting there, guys. Next thing we're going to look at is badges, or labels and then badges. So let's go ahead and put underneath here, we'll put a line or an HR, and then I'm just going to paste some of this stuff in. So these are the labels. Okay, labels, we have the span, class label, and then label default. Just like the buttons, we're using default, primary, success, and info, warning, and danger. So let's save that. Okay, now notice this one is big, this primary, because I have it within an H1. So if you put it within a heading, it's going to make it bigger. Alright, so those can be pretty helpful. Badges, so let's see, let's paste this in. So badges, we have a link here going to inbox, and then we just have a span with the class of badge and then 50. And then here we have a button with messages with a span of a class of badge with 2. Okay, so if we look at that, you'll see we have this inbox with 50. That's good for if you're building some kind of message system. And then you have the button messages with 2. Okay, so those are badges. Let's see. Next we have images. So for that, I'm going to paste in. We're going to go outside of the container, which ends right here. And I'm going to paste this in. Okay, another container, and we have an image with the class of thumbnail, and we're just using a placeholder image here. Then we have an image with the class of image rounded, which will give it rounded corners, and then image circle, which will actually make the image a circle. So let's save that, and that's what we get. You can see the different styles of image. Okay, now next thing I want to look at is a really important part of Bootstrap, and that's the grid system. Okay, so let's go right here. We'll put a comment. We'll say grids. This will be in its own container. Oops. Okay, so when we want to start a grid, basically a grid is broken up into 12 blocks. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12, and then you can say how many of these blocks you want to use in each div. So, for instance, a common one would be to use an 8 columns for your main layout, and then 4 for the sidebar. And notice that 8 and 4 is going to equal 12 altogether. All right, so what we'll do is create a row. Okay, you want to wrap your grids. You want to go by row. And then let's say we want an 8 column, so we'll say div class equals call md 8. Okay, and I'll go over what md means in a minute. And then underneath that, actually let's put some content there. We'll say lorem tab, which will just give us some content. And we probably want to wrap that in a paragraph. Okay, and then underneath it, let's just copy that, paste it in, and change this to 4. Okay, and we'll just cut this text down a little bit. Okay, so let's see what that gives us. Let's make sure we put an HR here. Okay, so here's our grid. We have an 8 column here, and then we have a 4 column. So this would commonly be the main layout and then a sidebar. Alright, so it makes it so that you don't have to use your floats and all that, judging the margin and padding. It takes all that into effect. Alright, so let's do something a little different. Let's do 4 3 columns. Okay, notice 4 times 3 is 12, so we can do that and have it look good. So we want 4 boxes essentially lined up. So what we'll do is, let's see, let's just copy this whole row right here and put it underneath, and then we're going to change this to 3. This one's also going to be 3, but we want the same text in each one. So I'm going to copy that, paste that in, and then we just want 2 more of these 3 column divs. So I'll paste that in, save it, and now notice that we have 4 3 column divs. Okay. What else? I mean, you could do any combination you want. You could do 2 6 column divs. So for instance, if we copy, let's copy this row. Okay, we'll go underneath this row, change this to 6 and 6, save it, and let's see what, oh. Okay, so notice that this and this, they're even because they're both 6. And we could put line breaks here to separate this a little bit. Okay. You could even do 12 one-column divs. So that's a lot of code, so let me just grab that. Okay, so we'll go right here. Paste that in. So basically we have a row with 12 of these column D1s. And look at that. Alright, now, as far as the MD, that stands for medium screen size. Now, if we go to a certain point, like, let's say when it gets to here, when it's like tablet view, it automatically goes into just all on top of each other, no more columns. Now, if we want to keep that format, let's say the 8.4 we have up here, the sidebar and the main column, if we want to keep that here, what we could do is say call-sm-8 and then call-sm.4. So if we save that, now you'll see that we have the columns back. If we go down even more, it'll do it again. Now if we want to still have those columns here, we could add call-xs-8 and then call-xs-4. Okay, so now we have the columns again, which you probably wouldn't want. If you're on a screen this small, you probably don't want columns like that. But you can do it. Okay, so there's two more things that I want to show you, two pretty important things, and that's the Navbar and the Jumbotron. Okay, so we'll start with the Navbar, and we're actually going to put that at the top. So let's go away at the top here. And let's see, we'll put it right below the body. Now this is quite a bit of code, so I'm actually going to get this from the documentation, which is what a lot of people do. So let's go to Components and Navbar. Okay, we're just going to grab this whole thing from this nav to this nav. And let's put that right here. Okay, just going to tab that over. Now let's see what this looks like. Okay, so there's our Navbar. This has a lot in it. It has our branding, our logo, some links. It has a drop down. And just to let you know, you have to include the Bootstrap JavaScript for this to work. Okay, there's also a search form, which we don't need, but you can have, and then some links over here with another drop down. And if we look at the code here, I'm going to get rid of some stuff. I don't want that form. So from here, this form to the end right here, let's get rid of that. Okay, save it. Now that's gone. We can also get rid of the links over here. That's this UL with the class of Navbar right. Okay, get rid of that. Save it. Now that's gone. Alright, now notice that if I make this bigger, the Navbar content is way over here, and I don't want that. I want that to be in a container. So what we would do in this situation is just see how it has container fluid. Change that to just container. Okay, now it's pushed towards the middle. Alright, also, if you want this to be a darker color, all you need to do is change Navbar default class to Navbar inverse. Save that, and now it's a dark color. Okay, and let's just change the brand, the logo right here. We'll say Bootstrap cheat sheet. Save that. Alright, so that's the Navbar. Next thing, last thing is the Jumbotron, which is, where is it? basically a showcase area. We have a big heading, some text, learn more, and usually you'd put an image or something behind it as well. Alright, so for that we can just type that in. Let's go below the navbar. Okay, we'll put a comment here. And let's see. We want a div with the class of Jumbotron. Okay, and then in here we want a container because we want everything to be pushed into the middle. Okay, we'll put an H1. Let's say welcome to my website, and then we'll put in a paragraph. I'm just going to say lorem tab, give us some content, but I don't want it too long. Say up to here. Alright, and then we probably want a button. So we'll say href. Okay, give it a class of btn primary. Say read more. Alright, and a lot of times I like to center the content in the Jumbotron, so if we just add text center, and let's save that. Okay, so there's our Jumbotron. Now if you want this to be gone, this space right here, that's the margin for the navbar. What I would suggest is just in your own custom style, whether you want to do it up here or have your own style sheet, you could say .navbar margin bottom 0. Okay, and actually you want to have that after the Bootstrap CSS, so we want to put that right here. Alright, and that gets rid of that. And notice that the navbar by default has these rounded corners. Usually you wouldn't want that. So for what we could do is just say border radius 0. Okay, now it doesn't have the rounded corners. Alright, so this is a pretty nice cheat sheet if you need to know some classes for Bootstrap. That was what I wanted to do, get you guys that. I realized there are some things that I didn't get to cover. I probably will make another video for the JavaScript stuff, and just about definitely going to make that CMS admin theme UI that we're going to build with Bootstrap. Alright, so let me know if that's something you guys are interested in. Okay, and I'm always open to suggestions. If you guys read my comments, and you can see that I do respond to you guys. If you have a suggestion for a project that I like and I think will benefit my subscribers. Okay, I do have a 12 project course building Bootstrap themes, so that's something that you probably want to check out if you're interested in this kind of thing. And that's it. So if you like this video, please like it and please subscribe, and I will see you next time.